In the year 1917, when Russia is in the middle of the October Revolution and the Bolsheviks are taking over, this is when Finland takes advantage of the commotion in Russia and declares itself independent and says, we're no longer part of the Russian Empire. You could kind of compare Finland to Poland in that sense, where they were forcefully under the Russian Empire. But the power of the Russians comes back around 15 years after this, when Joseph Stalin has absolute power, and he's one of the most powerful men on earth. When Stalin finally has absolute power, he looks towards the west and he sees two things that need to come back to the motherland. One is Finland and the other is Poland. But before he does anything, he realizes that Germany is becoming a little too powerful and he does not want to start a war with them. So he decides to lay low on the Poland part. When we move forward, this is when Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin tried to make a deal with Poland, and they basically wanted to cut this country in half for themselves. Stalin realizes that this is the best he's gonna get at the moment, so he cuts Poland in half, and they both spread their influence in this country. Of course, when Nazi Germany invades Poland, the British and the French are not a fan of this. They realize if he takes over Poland, he's pretty much gonna take over the entire world. So on the same day, they decide to declare war on Germany, and this is the beginning of World War II. Stalin realizes that there's too much things going on in Western Europe, so this is the time to attack Finland and put it back in Russian control. The reason we told you the beginning of World War II is to get to know a little bit what Finland was up to, and the reason we want to do that is because the star of this show is a Finnish person. Simo Häyhä. This man is known as one of the deadliest people on earth, and no one in history has been able to break his record. Throughout the Winter War, Simo Häyhä successfully killed 505 people. You might ask how? Like this, with a sniper rifle. Just like we said, Simo Häyhä is one of the most successful snipers in the world. The reason for this deadly sniper, they called him the White Death. We usually don't say this, but before we continue and get to know Simo Häyhä a little bit better, please be sure to subscribe, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. But let's get back to the White Death. This man is obviously from Finland, and his enemy is clear, the Soviet Union, and that is why all of his kills were from the Red Army. Some people say that the Finland government was a fan of Nazi Germany and fascist ideas, but it seems like that was not the case. They hated the Soviet Union, especially the Russian Empire, so much because they were under their colonial power for so many years that they wanted to fight them and defeat them. Simo Häyhä would go to work in the morning and come back at night, and they say he killed an average of 6 people per day, and that's insanely impressive. But sometimes he would kill more, and of course sometimes he would kill less. Usually when you look at snipers, they have a scope on top of the rifle, but Simo Häyhä did not use a scope. He would go full iron sight. The reason for his success was that he didn't have a scope, because usually when a sniper uses a scope and the sun glares inside the scope, it basically lights it up like a flashlight, and that gives away his position and gets him shot. But the way Simo Häyhä would set himself up, nobody would know he's there. Another reason he was so successful is that he was very experienced. He entered Finland's army in the year 1924, and he was very familiar with his sniper rifle, because even when he was not in service, he would go hunting. So when World War II is going on, he's a very experienced marksman that has more than 14 years of experience. Simo Häyhä would camp in areas that were usually minus 20 degrees Celsius. And in this type of temperature, these rifles would jam up. But Simo Häyhä was very experienced, especially in working on his rifle, so he would quickly fix it and get back to work. You might say the Soviet Union lost more than 10 million soldiers in all of World War II. What is 505 gonna do that Simo Häyhä killed? But killing one soldier in a battlefield with a sniper is much more strategic than a battlefield, because once one person gets shot, the entire army is terrified to move forward, so they basically go in retreat mode. And that's all because the opponent's snipers cannot see him. So the strategy with snipers like this is to hold off a huge army with very little men. The specialty of Simo Häyhä was that with very little men, he would hold the position and not allow the Soviet army to continue moving forward. And this is one of the many reasons that the Russians could not take over Finland. So how did he kill so many soldiers in this white snow? Very easily, because the Soviet army would wear green clothing. And another reason, the Soviet army wasn't very strategic, because most of the generals were executed by Joseph Stalin, and they weren't very tactical like they were before. They were basically young kids, 15, 16, 17 years old, that were handed a weapon and told to continue moving forward. If you look at the Winter War between these two countries, you'll see that the Soviet Union lost about 400,000 men, while on the other side, Finland lost about 66,000 men. When you look at any sniper in movies especially, he's usually laying down on his stomach and the gun is laid out on the floor. Obviously, they put the sniper rifle on the ground so it's more stable. But Simo Häyhä did it a completely different way. He would sit on his knees and hold the rifle with both hands because he felt that his arms are more stable than the ground, and that makes his aim better. Just like all of Finland's army, they would wear white clothing so it would be extremely hard to see in the snow, and he would camp in an area where you wouldn't even be able to see him. You couldn't even see a glare on him since he didn't have a scope. He was extremely short as well, only 5'3" or 1.6 meters, so that made it even harder for the enemy to see him. The news about Simo Häyhä reaches the commanders of the Soviet army, so the Soviet army decides to send more snipers in that area so they can control that area and specially try to kill Simo Häyhä, or the White Death. Eventually, after a few months, one of these Russian snipers successfully sees him and shoots towards him. But where does a bullet hit? His jaw. His jaw completely rips off, but they successfully put it back together, but never the same. After Simo Häyhä heals up, he asks to return to the army, but they don't allow him anymore. And since Stalin had realized that it's extremely hard to take over Finland and he's losing too many men, he decided to sign a peace treaty with them. But it's not like Stalin was scared of Finland. He was more worried about the West, especially Germany. And the worrying was correct, because sometime after this deal was signed, the German army attacked Russia. And you could say the Soviet army was not ready for it. Of course, the main goal was to reach Moscow and go down to the Caspian. And when Finland realized that the Nazis had attacked the Soviet Union, they decided to join and fight the Soviet Union as well. But we want to see what Simo Häyhä is up to. Just like we said, they didn't allow him back in the military. And after World War II was over, to congratulate him for his service, they gifted him a ranch, and for the rest of his life, he breeded dogs in this facility. He even bred dogs that could hold a sniper rifle. But that was a joke. The man that was known as the White Death lived for a very long time. He lived until the year 2002 and died at the age of 96. After this many years, nobody has been able to break this guy's record, and hopefully no one is able to. But unfortunately, the greed for money and power is always there, and war is always alongside that. So unfortunately, I don't think war is going anywhere. What do you guys think?